Hello and welcome back. So this video is split into two parts, about 4 minutes. It will show you how to do the watercolour version, but this version here is the acrylic version of this particular autumn wreath. Both of them take around 40 minutes, so it's a really great time to spend in the Word with God and thinking about how Jesus gathered his people. So I've used a paper plate and I've put out different autumn colours. You could do this wreath in any colours you like. But I've made it an autumn wreath. So along with the acrylic paint choices, you're going to need the stencils out of the autumn kit, and these are just cosmetic sponges for this part. And all I'm doing is dabbing the paint through the stencil. And what I've did to start with is I drew a circle using the candle that you can see there to get a circle for me to base around, but it was very light because once you put the acrylic on it you won't be able to rub it out. I'm just using selections of colours just to build the wreath up, starting with the biggest ones first. And if I'm using the same leaf twice, I'm making sure I'm wiping it off so it doesn't transfer on this piece of paper at the side using a baby wipe. I'm just putting the little final leaves on now, stems and leaves. I'm just cleaning it off. And I'm using the end of a pencil, a round pencil, to use the red colours to put berries on, and I keep just drying it off between layers. And then I'm going to add some more leaves and a different colour red just to give the berries, just to give it a little bit more depth. So I'm continuing to add layers of red and pinkish red because I've got some white on the palette there, little round circles that are berries, and I'm drying it off. So I've done this on paper so I can stick it in as a tip-in in my Bible. And what I've got now is I've got an artist pen, so a permanent pen. So these are uni-pin pens, but you could use a Pitt pen or a Pigment Micron pen. I prefer to use 8s and 2s, 0.8 and 0.2 size, but it's completely up to you. I'm going around the edge of each of the leaves, and then I'm going to add some veins on top. Just make sure your paint is completely dry because acrylic paint will kill your pens, and these pens, as you'll know, are quite expensive. So I've swapped to the thinner pen just to put the veins in now, and I'm using the traceable from the kit just to give me a guide of where things went and all the details on them. I've just grabbed my white gel pen just to add highlights to the berries. I'm just drying the gel pen off so it doesn't smudge. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to trace through the word gather, but I can't actually see through the piece of paper very well. If you're doing this in your Bible, you better see it better. But on my iPad, there is a app that works like a light box. So this app's free, and it works really, really well. I think it works on most iPads. I'm not sure, but I've just got an iPad Pro. And then I'm cutting it down, ready to go into my Bible. And I'm trying to find my Bible at this point. And there we are. And grabbing some washi tape. So this technique where you dab the acrylic through the stencil can be used for the previous one that I showed you. That's how I did the Palm Sunday one. That was the previous lesson. And then I'm just putting something on the back, my thoughts on the verse, etc. So that every time I see that, I know the date I did it and the thoughts that I've got on it. And I'm highlighting the verse in my Bible. So this is the second version. Start the same way, a circle, any size circle to work around. And what I'm doing is I'm using different water-based marker pens, felt marker pens, and I'm colouring within the stencil, and I'm lifting it, and then I'm drying it. So it takes a little bit longer, this does, because you have to dry doing it this method, as opposed to using the method that I showed you when we did the previous demonstration where I drew it in watercolour pencil crayon. What I am making sure that I do though is if the markers have mixed, that I'm just scribbling them off at the side there on a bit of scrap paper to make sure my marker pens aren't permanently damaged. And again, I'm using the Gather stencil, traceable, to give me an idea about where to put the leaves. And I've gone again for autumn colour, so it's a parallel with the other one. Now I've added a little bit of green because in autumn there are certain leaves that are still green and go yellow as well. This particular page is done in a Bible journaling made simple workbook by Sandy Olnick, and what it is the workbook has got pages like a Bible in, so you can actually practice stuff in it. And this has been done on a page that's been gessoed with Art Basics clear gesso, so you can totally do this in your Bible as long as you gesso the page first. Now watercolour doesn't go through, but these watercolour pens will, because they're so pigmented. So if you notice, instead of using water to blend them, I'm using the pens themselves to blend in with each other, so that's another technique that you can use. I have got a water pen porta brush on the side there ready if I need it, and I've also got a blending pen that comes with the Ecoline big markers that I'm using. So what I'm doing now is I'm grabbing some Inktense pencils. I'm just auditioning them. So the bit of paper I'm using is a page out of an old hymn book that's the same kind of paper as the Bible, and I'm just testing the colours because Inktense sort of so different in when they're in the pencil than what they do when they're actually activated, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm just auditioning it out, see whether I like the colours, and I'm drying it off to check. Inktense always go through your paper unless you've gessoed, so don't use Inktense in your Bible unless you've gessoed the page, unless you are not bothered about it going through. So I'm just looking at the Gather traceable again, and now I'm just drawing through the stencil with my Inktense pencils, and I'm using a watercolour pencil as well. So the red pencil there is a watercolour pencil by Arteza, and Inktense are by Derwent. So I'm now going in and adding all the details. So I'm adding the extra thin branches with the little berries on them. You couldn't add those with the marker pens because it's too fine a stencil to do that. So I've gone for another watercolour medium, which is the Inktense and the Arteza watercolour pencils. And then I'm just activating it using a water brush, and that's an Arteza water brush. So all I did there was add just some little bits of colour, and I'm drying it off between each task so that I can I don't smudge it with my arms. I lean over and I've just put some veins in to the greener leaves with the green pencil crayon, an Inktense pencil crayon, and I'm just adding extra details with different pencil crayons or Inktense pencils, and then activating them as we go along. And if in doubt, I try it out on my little bit of paper there before I start. So I'm now drawing my berries in. I really love the vibrancy of these colours. The Ecoline markers are really, really vibrant, but you could use any markers you want. the more expensive the marker, the more vibrant the colours tend to be, because there's more pigment in them. A good mid-range one is the Arteza ones. I am not sponsored by Arteza. I've always bought all my stuff. Like I bought the Eco Line ones. They are my favourite, but they're very juicy and sometimes can be a little bit tricky to work with. That's that one is a koi marker that I'm using there. So what I'm going to do now is trace the word gather through with an artist marker like I did on the last one. Dry it off, and there we are.